you doing, Graham?
Hello, Patrick.
What's on your mind today? What's this Starmer thing?
Back here again. Then there's another Tory crossed the floor.
What does that mean?
Well, that's a little trick pulled out. It just shows that Starmer's a Tory and he hates the left because Diane Abbott hasn't been forgiven, nor has Jeremy Corbyn, and nor has the filmmaker. What's his name? The famous filmmaker and his mates.
No, it's my mind. Anyway, it'll come to you. Yeah. Well, I mean, and how you? Ken
Loach, the filmmaker. Yeah. So they haven't been forgiven, and anybody who's friends of them, there's in a kind of Stalinist way that anybody who's friends of the unforgiven are unforgiven. Yeah. But somehow, Tories, however right wing, and this Natalie Elphicke is far right wing. She's probably in the Braverman camp.
We are in a strange political situation.
Well, basically, she's probably said to him, "Look, I've had enough. I'm going to leave anyway because I'm going to lose big time. It's humiliating," and and he says, "I know what. We'll come over to our side and let's look good."
Yeah, but half the Labour Party MPs are upset about it.
Wow, the humiliation is too much. Even the moderates who in fact, especially the moderates who are loyal to him, not Momentum on the left, who are just think, well, yeah, that's what's to be expected. No, but the people who are loyal to him feel backstabbed. It's so blatant that he thinks so little of them.
The politics is not a game. Politics is not a game to please the people. It's a game for power for an individual.
Well, of course they're playing games and they're not taking things seriously because socialism, right? The distribution of wealth, a humanitarian society, peace, justice, things like that. You think about Peter Tosh's song, Justice. This is very, very hard, whereas games are very simple, and people that are privileged play simple games. They play games, and that's what they do. Maybe life is boring when you're that privileged.
Well, before we get deeper into that political situation,
or more shallow.
The last, the last time, or more shallow. You could drown in a shallow point. The last time we was here, it was the day of the mayoral election.
Yeah, wonderful. I'm still floating. Right.
Why? What was the good news that has given you this high?
Well, the good news.
This political high.
The Tories are sunk. Okay. And they're going to disappear, basically, into history, into the geriatrism, and backwards, countryside.
Oh, it's a Chinook. Chinook.
Yeah.
Do you know what they use that to transport?
It's military transport.
Yeah. What? Do you know what they're transporting?
Prisoners.
Armaments.
Yeah.
These are heavy lifting. We're not going to go there yet.
Okay.
But yeah, so the results of the
election are good. Tories are finished. Labour's done badly in the big cities.
What does that tell me about the people of Britain?
Well, that means there's a shift to the left, just like after breakfast, Brexit.
There's dinner.
I won't say it. Right?
Breakfast is dinner.
After the right-wing breakfast, the cold breakfast, right? Serve cold. There was a huge right-wing sweep.
Yeah, I get the impression the politician.
The populist right.
They took us out for breakfast. They're going to take us out to lunch now, isn't it?
Well, they no. The thing is, it shows that their tricks aren't really working. All the the usual attacks aren't really working.
Graham,
Stop the boat! Stop the boat! Stop the boat!
What that is telling me, it's not. I'm looking at it in reverse. It's not about the politician. It's about the people, right? If you could get fooled so many times and get fooled again.
Well, if you take a nihilist view, right, like the people that don't vote and the people that have given up, you know, as Voltaire said, tending their own garden, that those people will say, well, that's what's going to happen. So they've got half the picture, but they haven't got the other half. They don't have the optimism to realise that these people do change their mood, just like our duck friend.
These two are a crazy couple.
Yeah.
I know them well, actually. They fight. They fight off everybody, all the other.
So one of them is the MP for Dover, or she was until yesterday, and the other one is incarcerated in His Majesty's His Majesty's Alternative to Rwanda.
Okay.
And has done something that's so horrible that you'd need sleeping tablets to think about it.
He volunteered, didn't he? The one that went to Rwanda, didn't he volunteer?
Yeah. No. I was talking about Charlie Elphicke, the husband. You know the story.
What's the story? No, tell
Right.
me.
In Dover, Dover's always had the most right-wing of MPs, right?
Okay.
Right-wing racist MP. That's the White Cliffs, the defence, you know,
White Cliffs of
Churchill
Dover.
and all that. So, and they've always had the most right-wing MPs, the most reactionary MPs.
Yeah.
But the most reactionary MPs are a bit sick and a bit weird in their private life. So Charlie Elphicke became so filthy and famous that he was sort of messing around with his interns in a very nasty way.
Wow.
Right, and during the court case, his wife said make like a big joke out of it, you know, and he's very attractive and he's been witch hunted. Persecuted by people who are jealous of him. They don't like him because he's so successful, right? Which he was, right? And then he went to jail. Okay, let's cut to the chase.
Yeah.
Sexual assault.
Yeah, but how could you?
Horrible.
Yeah, how could you live with somebody like that?
And but then afterwards she divorced him.
Okay.
Right? Because she saw which way the wind was. The minute he went to jail, she changed her mind.
Okay. Now, talking about people who went to jail, I think is.
Now, how can that person become an Labour MP? How?
Yeah.
Come off it.
There's a current MP that they've just reintroduced back in again.
Diane Abbott, right, is actually being persecuted, being abused by the misogynists that her husband represents.
All
She's
right.
on the side of the bullies and misogynists.
Wow.
And so the people that are victim of sexism and misogyny are not wanted in modern Labour Party, the Labour Party of women's rights and women's votes, and these creeps and bullies and
So Starmer
and weirdos and sickies are welcome.
So Starmer's playing this dog whistle.
Dog whistle, yeah.
You know.
Well, he's going to go off to the Telegraph and say how patriotic she is and how wonderful, isn't it? Dover, he's captured Dover. Yes, the white. Oh yeah, well, how clever. From the Tories. Oh yes, clap, 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 clap.
But you see, again, I'll go back to the British people.
Contemptuous.
Right. I mean, one of the reasons we're doing this podcast is because we can see through, and have been seeing through a whole lot of things for so long, and A good example is Brexit. You see, people, they were taken out for and yet still.
Well, the Rwanda policy
Oh, that's the
is
latest one.
basically started with Brexit.
Yeah.
Right-wing populism, foreigners. Then it was Eastern Europeans. Nigel Farage chose Eastern Europeans, but he really meant dark skin, but that was to come later. But of course, he kept his biggest vile hatred, of course, for the Southern European, East Europeans.
I know, but again, the British people. What is the problem with the British people?
Well, that's a strange anomaly word. What does British people mean? It's just, that's the right-wing word. Why would we use their words? There, as Mark said, there's a class system, right? Why do working class people, right, that don't have any nationality, religion, or ethnicity, they might have different degrees of melanin in them, but apart from that, and they have different habits which they call culture, but apart from superficial things like that, their economic interests, right, are not shared with the wealthy. But what makes them so fooled that they worship one sort of wealthy against another sort?
Do you know this Tommy Robinson, and he was trying to get, and he's
Listen, he might be in the Labour Party soon. After he is anti-sclerotic.
Wasn't he trying to get a British, what do you call a British day, St. George's Day, right? But doesn't he realize, and doesn't the British people realize, that every bank holiday is a British bank holiday, right? Especially May Day, right? The May Day, and then we got Whitsun. May Day, the one that just went, right? The Morris dancers, the Maypole pole,
Yeah.
right?
No,
the
no,
jousting.
Yeah, but the Maypole is more of the sort of English culture that is folk. Folk music doesn't interest the racists and the fascists who fight for the millionaires, who work on their behalf. They're not interested in that. They are only interested in the Nazi nasty negative connotations.
Do you know?
Look, I don't think I'll ever see Tommy Morris dancing. I might be wrong, but I don't think so.
Yeah, and those days, May Day, they have a reenactment of medieval battles, you know, and they'll dress up in their medieval costumes.
Reenactments.
Yeah, reenactments, right? And you know,
Fun.
Yeah. And then you have the Morris dancers, you know, and for the kids you got the Maypole.
Interesting here, Morris dancers. It sounds I don't know. I might be talking off my head, but it sounds like Moorish dancers.
Do you know some of them black up?
That seems to give us an indication of where this could have come from. They could have been African slaves very early on in the late medieval era, but only a few of them, and they could have brought some cultural things with them. Or from North Africa, maybe.
The only place,
maybe North African sailors.
The only place
who married and settled down.
Yeah, the only place in the world I've seen that they've got dancers with bells around their ankles is actually in Africa
and India.
Okay.
They're called gungroos. Yes. Many cultures have them. Yeah.
All right.
Cultures.
So obviously it didn't come from here.
We don't know where it came from. We don't know. I mean, it's possible that it was something native here. We don't know.
And the instrument, the mandolin, the sort of guitar with a big thing, and there's an angle. It's like a guitar, old style. It's got a big bulb bass, but where the keys are, it's at a right angle.
Right angle, yeah.
Right, and it's usually medieval, you know, in the days of.
I think it was earliest I think the earliest forms were in Spain and Portugal, maybe Italy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mediterranean.
Yeah. And if it was
Maybe they were copies of the Arabic ode
yeah.
that later became the Spanish guitar.
Yeah, and and the thing about this country is the infrastructure is Roman, and Rome is
Roman, yes, Rome didn't. The Romans, right, didn't really have the modern concept of racism that came through scientific racism. So, it was thought that the emperor.
not Nero.
No, was it like who
Augustus.
fought Hannibal?
Okay,
One
I
of the
don't know.
emperors who went to sack Carthage.
Well, we got Caesar, Augustine.
One of them, many of them, but one of them was actually black.
Oh, the one who conquered England. His name is Septimus Seamus.
I didn't know that. No.
Yeah, second. Do you know where he's buried?
In Northumberland.
In those days, there were two places. In those days, you had two places, which was the capital. Where are the two bishops from?
I don't know.
York
Okay.
and Canterbury.
Canterbury, yeah, Canterbury.
Those were the two capitals.
The two yes.
So where is Septimus Seamus buried? In York.
York.
Still
I
there.
see, yeah.
Yeah. So you see the British people, St. George's Day, right?
You keep using this word. It's a word I don't really recognise. The
Tell us.
British people, the French people. that a whole group of people identify with this artificial creation.
Wasn't it? Who was it that went to the in the 10th century? Richard the Lionheart. What was his name? And he went to conquer the Arabic country.
Oh yeah, in the Crusade, yeah. Richard,
Crusade, what's his
Richard the third, I think. Was it the third or?
All right, and then they call him Richard the Lionheart.
The Lionheart, okay.
And one thing I know he came back with a Bible. Because where was Christ born? And what was the
Nazareth.
which is where in the world? Just a ballpark.
Palestine or Israel or whatever you want to call it.
All right,
Or whatever you what I don't know what it was called then.
Arabic world. And when he came back from the Crusades, he came back with a Bible.
Or as they would call it, Palestina or Palestina.
Yeah. But the thing is, talking about the original culture and belief, we paganism. You know, I'll do a question and answer thing usually when I see people. Paganism, and you had the white witches, and you know they used to dance around in a circle and stuff. And then you got Stonehenge,
Well,
the Druids.
we're told that seems to be the kind of cliche that people have, but I just wonder if that was the
case.
What was the case, or it was a kind of a tongue-in-cheek version.
Me personally,
You know, jazz hands, the
Yeah.
jazz hands version of paganism.
no, I believe that is part of the culture, the true British culture. Remember the Witchfinder General when they used to duck people in the pond?
Yes.
The whole witch thing.
Well, no, and if the elderly women who were collecting
Herbs and
herbs were
considered.
created were labelled as or scapegoated
As a
to
witch.
be as witches. They were, I think, first put in the ducking chair, and paradoxically, if they survived that
They
was
were-
proof that they were not. They had
were
mystical
witch.
forces
Yeah.
protecting them, and then they were burnt alive.
Joan of Arc. Why did they do that to her?
Joan of Arc. I don't know. The medieval times were just brutal.
Medieval.
Medieval, brutal. Well, evil.
Medieval.
Half evil. Medieval.
The medieval time was just medieval, man.
Evil.
You're right.
Medi and evil.
But with the cost of living, right? I think some people are living in medieval time. Well,
I see where you're coming from. That yeah. In comparison to the amount of wealth and possibilities that exist in technology, they are living in the medieval times. Yes, they are in. If you look here, people living in tents and that, they would be they could be living like they were in the 14th century, in modern Britain,
Yeah.
modern Europe.
Yeah, I don't know about the homeless thing in Europe and
I should think that the homeless culture, and I'm saying this with my tongue in my cheek, calling it a culture, but the homeless culture is similar everywhere around the world at that level.
I know about the American, right? Well, American one because I studied it during the American election. And there is a thing called. There's a lot of people living in trailer homes in America, and there's a place called Tornado Alley, which is just trailer parks.
I see.
And then I remember a white comedian was saying, "Don't you get it? It's called Tornado Alley." And when the tornado comes along and it wipes out everything, everyone's going, why? He goes, don't you get it? That's why they call it Tornado Alley. Yeah, so there's lots of people living in trailer parks. There's lots of people living out on the streets. There's encampments. In fact, I've been watching one of the beaches where Arnold Schwarzenegger used to train. You know, one of these beaches in America where you walk past the bodybuilders.
Like Gold's Gym and things.
Yeah, and what has happened during lockdown, the whole beach got swamped with homeless people, and I almost call him a friend. This was a German guy who's a bodybuilder, and he used to go around like at least once a week, right? And he used to do a video, and he used to say, well, these are the homeless people here, and he says, so every now and then the dust carts, the American dust carts, like dustbin people, will come along and just pick up all of the stuff. And like
stuff,
thing, and then
I think I saw them in the Camden News Journal about the after Braverman's statement about taking tents away. I remember the next week there was a massive outrage at council workers throwing them away. That was put a stop to quite quickly, but I'm sure it still happens.
Yeah, and that was a few years ago, you know.
Yeah.
And if we add the cost of living to this, if we add long COVID to this, if we add mental illness to this, if we add shortage of houses to this,
well, poverty and desperation will cause will multiply with physical and mental illness.
medieval time, my man.
Yes, medieval time. I'm sure I'm sure that Finsbury Park wouldn't look out of place in the 16th century Britain.
Medieval time. And do you remember Shakespeare?
I never met him. I wish I did. I'd love to have met him.
Right. So the true English language is a bit of what in medieval time is what Shakespeare wrote.
Shakespeare is not medieval. Shakespeare's part of the Renaissance. The Renaissance lasted quite a while. At the end of, well, I'm not trying to sort of put you down with the knowledge and that, but the medieval period came to an end before the time of Shakespeare, around the Stuarts, and I think was the beginning of that. That's when spices were being found in India and Indonesia and that, and being brought back, and trade with other
Come on, give me a book. 17th century?
It didn't happen on the 16th, 17th.
What about these big paintings? You know, when you go and you see these big paintings of these big, what time what time would you give for those paintings? There was a time where there was a big explosion of, you know.
I think that was all around the Renaissance time, because the Renaissance was the flowering of the modern world as we know it. Was of the world of like science and against mysticism and religion, the idea of science and
I would have hated to be experimented on for a science project at that time.
You wouldn't have been experimented on a science project. You would have just been
Experimented on.
No, not experimented on. You would have just been viciously attacked because you may have had a cleft lip.
And then that brings me on to the peats and the bog, and there was a ritual where they would sacrifice people, and they found a few of them in you hear about a bog pit somewhere.
Oh yeah.
I think that person had a cleft, a deformity, didn't they?
Oh yes. I don't know. I have no idea what to say. What can I say about ancient archaeology? No idea.
And then if we go back to the medieval time, maybe when the farmers, maybe it's part of what is it called? Harvest.
Harvest,
yeah. Right, harvest festival, right? And then
I think harvest festivals are celebrated in in the countryside, everywhere around the world.
And maybe there is a sinister aspect to the harvest festival.
I don't know. Please tell me. I don't know. No idea.
And maybe
never thought about it.
There's a sinister. There's definitely a sinister one to the spring festival. The sinister aspect is that we have to give a sacrifice to the gods, right, in order for us to have a good harvest. Do you know how many people will sacrifice for us to have this good weather?
No. I have no.
But just for the record, tell us about.
How many?
No, I'm sort of being kidding, but
How many?
There is cultures that would spring festival. They would give sacrifice
I was
to the god.
looking at your arm and just thinking how delicious that meat would look to me. But apart from that, carry on.
Cannibalism, in some cultures, it was to honor. You actually honor the person, but then in war,
Cannibalism is the old racist trope. There's been such a little bit of cannibalism around. It's been in religious rituals and for certain things, but it hasn't been popular. It's not been common. I think throughout, I don't know, I don't know, but I think throughout society, so from the ancient societies, it was a taboo to eat human flesh.
in medieval time, so which society?
All society.
In medieval times, you would be my.
Just like there's been an incest taboo even in the primitive world. I think these things have been for, you know.
I think history has been rewritten. In medieval time, if you were my best knight, I would say, bring me the head of my enemy.
Yeah.
And
That's not cannibalism.
or I will say,
No, bring it to me and cook it.
That's just the head. Or bring me the heart of my enemy.
Well, that's just brutality. That's
You know what they used to do?
Cruel brutality.
They used to eat it because that way they would have the power of their enemy.
Who?
My enemy. You're my number one knight, medieval time.
I don't know where you got that from, but I don't think that's true. I think that sounds like nonsense. I've got to say, but it is funny. But it's funny. But the thing is, it's funny. But the people who will be listening to us, some of the people will be very ignorant and take that seriously because they want to jump on it.
Let them jump on it. Let them take it seriously. And I go back.
No, it's important to be responsible and think about who. Are the
politicians responsible?
No, they're the people who manipulate these myths. These are the myths that are manipulated
Right.
by them. They some of them may believe it, just like some right-wing politicians might be racist, but most of them are manipulative.
Brexit, Rwanda, the MP that walked across from Conservative to Labour. What are they espouting? Is there any reality? Is there any value?
No, this is just a game going on to entertain us. It's to entertain themselves. This is there might be some, but it's not really worth thinking about it too deeply. The fact that they're all distractions, aren't they? From the fact that they're robbing us blind. I mean, I just did some shopping today in Aldi, and that's fairly cheap, but I still have very little money left. I mean, and that means, but that may be because I paid some bills a few days ago. But one way or another, this is what everyone's feeling,
And because
and to actually. And every day a new sort of moral panic is thrown up, a new distraction is thrown up.
You're right.
Every day,
And there was that
deliberately, through the capitalist media.
Yeah, and there's that simple fact, right? Now you said that when you look around, everybody's in the same position, and that is part of the trick, right? So,
Well, I think the Occupy London called it the 99%, right? And I think that's a good term to use, as opposed to the 1%. I think that generally explains it.
I did go out and see the 99%
99%.
protest. That was like about 5-6 years ago. Yeah, straight over there. Yeah. I did go out to that protest. It was down in St. Paul's.
Wonderful, yeah.
Yeah, they slept out in the tent all.
But it was amazing the activities that were going on, consciousness raising.
And they were entertaining as well. They did put on
Entertainment, yes.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
They did.
Why should social change be just doggerel?
Right.
I mean, I like to read some serious stuff as much, but I know that I can't really talk to another person using that same things because I'll bore themselves and myself. I mean, culture includes some kind of juice, sort of to a dry meal.
Let me link you to the 1% protests, to the Chinook carrying armory to the depot, to the current protests from the student protests in
British
America,
universities,
and it's now
and from American universities and French, and who knows where else.
And what do you think?
They're the ones that are allowed to take place. There must be others that have taken place, but it's closed down so quickly we don't know about them. I'm sure that people, even the most repressive regimes, know things. I'm sure lots of people know things.
Actually, I was reminded the conversation I was having with my friend David, that last week we were talking, and there was 2 points, and one of them was actually one was the cost of living, and it related to the Arab Spring. How the Arab Spring started. Do you know how Arab Spring started? I have a story how it started. How did the Arab Spring start?
Not sure.
One guy in Tunisia.
Oh yes.
Same.
He sold. I don't know.
He couldn't sell.
Or something like. He was a street seller of some kind.
Go on.
Vendor, and he was beaten to death by the police.
No.
By Bourguibus.
All right, that's one story.
Bourguibus.
No, that's one story.
No.
It was a street trader. He couldn't make any money.
Mm-hmm.
People get beaten to death all the time by the police over there.
Yeah.
Whereas the street trader, he couldn't make any money. right? Life was so hard. So what did he do? He burnt himself,
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
right? And then the people resonated with how could life be so hard? Inflation. Remember, when you talk about price rise with those, they talk about price rises going up every day, 10, 50%, what have you. Some of them said they can't afford the food, you know, they can't afford. So that's how, anyway, that's how I believe the Arab Spring started, because of the cost of living. What happened there was that the people down on the street, and the government had no idea what was happening to the people down on the street. The student protests we have at the moment, the protests we have every weekend, right? The various people doing...
Well, isn't the same old boring trope that's now wearing thin, the weaponization of this anti-Semitism, it seems to be the only insult they have left in their armory. I mean, they can't call it hate speech because obviously, that will backfire on them because, you know, and there's lots of Jewish people who are anti-Zionist among the protesters, and there's a lot of people there who actually want peace, like XLR people.
Right, and if we go back to the mayoral election and the current slight uproar in the Labour Party, the reason why I brought up the Arab Spring was that the government was totally not in touch with the people down on the street. The government right here in England is not in touch with the people down on the street. MPs have resigned, walked out, changed parties on behalf of what is happening in Gaza.
Well, they've been kicked out by Starmer. Starmer's made a big cull of left-wing Momentum MPs. And the magic word is, oh, you're anti-Semitic. In a way like Stalin just pointed to someone, you're an enemy of the state. And that's it. That's it. So we're into a kind of Stalinism. But it's more quiet and it's being done within the Labour Party.
But we got the students here now on protest. But the media is not carrying it.
Well, they must be trying to work out whether to ignore it or to attack them, or to because that might backfire, like it happened in America.
Well, they were.
So they're wondering what to do.
They were equating the American one, the American students' protests against what's happening in Gaza, with the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
Right? It needs. And this is where
Mayor Daley, who in Chicago, who murdered, yeah.
Right. So where the facts.
The Republican convention.
Yeah. The facts.
National Guard.
The facts are what I'm trying to say with the Arab Spring is that the government is out of sync with what the people feels, right? And the people are protesting, and the government every day in every single way.
Well, there's always been elements of that, but during the economic boom, there were comfortable middle class people and lower middle class people and that, and even sort of reasonably off working class people who really, you know, said we're not political because we're not really interested, and we're okay, and we're quite complacent, and we're okay. But now there's a huge amount of poverty, and they're able to put two and two together.
It's another Chinook. It sounds like two of them.
Yeah, well, that's going to happen in every park. What do you think it's like in Victoria Park? This is what, yeah. This is what they do.
No, it's a different helicopter. There's a But so what I'm saying, the amazing thing about Finsbury Park is when there's military movement, we could see some of the military stuff going past. Even when Obama was here, right? We saw the planes and stuff going past and what have you. When Thing was here, that tall orange
the orange gorilla. Yeah.
We had no sign of him. Anyway, there's no sign of him. There was no, because sometimes they fly past just to, and they will drive past just to say, yeah, we're here, kind of thing, you know. But there was no sign of that with him, you know. But yeah, the Starmer, the Conservative Party and the Labour Party are ignoring the fact about a lot of people are worried, deeply worried about the morality of 34,000 people being killed
Yes.
in
And
front of
there's
us.
no hiding it. There's no hiding out.
Right? And the people.
You can't. I mean, even not only in left-wing papers, but even in the Guardian, Independent, and sometimes in even right-wing papers, although I'm not sure, but you can see pictures of children, babies, and on the news you can see hungry babies. They're not Hamas terrorists. They're babies. They're babies. I mean, this is hurtful. And who would not feel awful? You know, they're children. They're scared. They're hungry, and many of them are injured. I mean, okay, like, what kind of monster would actually just ignore that?
Tony Blair.
What monster would ignore it? What monster would ignore that?
Well,
I'm not talking about all this, you know, years of education and reading and great sophistication and that, which I've accrued, right? I'm just as a human being, right? That's, you know.
And who's the moral guardians of the globe? The same people who's allowing this to happen.
Well, the arms dealers. The arms should be stopped immediately. All arms. It shouldn't be sold to Israel. Shouldn't be sold to Saudi Arabia when they were butchering those the poor Yemeni. They shouldn't be sold to.
Is that war still going on? We haven't.
Yes, it's still going on.
See? Still going.
And how come, if Muslims are supposed to be terrible, Donald Trump even thinks the Saudis are wonderful? But so this is ridiculous.
Isn't it the same as the?
So where's the Islamophobia towards the medieval fascist dictatorship of Saudi Arabia and King Salman, who went and butchered some journalist in
Turkey, was it?
In Turkey, yeah, in Istanbul, yeah.
Now, you see that mechanism you said about the English nationals who only adore the rich and the powerful, and they forget about the real culture that they actually have. In fact, nobody actually tells them, look, that it's over there, and over there.
Aren't they having difficulties as well paying the bills? The bills don't arrive with a national flag on them. They
used to, though. He used to.
Really?
He used to say on Her Majesty's service.
Yeah.
Doesn't say anymore.
Yeah.
He doesn't say.
Yeah.
He just says HMRC now.
But the thing is that that generally bills are bills.
I know. And what was I saying about?
And that should be the bottom line.
Yeah.
Human beings, right, are exploited by other human beings.
You were saying about Donald Trump in relation to the Saudis. Just the same way some of those.
Yeah,
English
amazing. They weren't part of the ban.
Yeah.
They weren't banned. Palestinians were banned, yes.
Yeah. So.
Syrians were banned.
Yeah. So.
Saudis weren't banned.
So Donald Trump is looking up at the Saudis because they're rich and powerful, and they got family history like the pharaohs or whatever.
Yeah, but if he's meant to be this great wall of shoot from the hip honesty, and he's supposed to have a Muslim ban, aren't they Muslim? Is there any?
Is he in court at the moment?
Over the hush money.
Being spanked with a rolled up.
Spank and the, yeah.
With a roll up.
Yeah.
With his picture on it.
Donald Rump finally gives in to misogyny.
Miscongeniality.
Miscongeniality and misogyny.
We live in an absolute ridiculous realm. All right, listen. Tell us something about the weather. What do you think about the weather?
It's great.
Why do we have weather? Why do you think we have weather?
Because the evil demonic forces, right, of winter have been defeated.
Because
Hades has been defeated by Demeter and her daughter Persephone, and have been pushed back once again.
And there was a great sacrifice.
And he's gone back into the underworld to sulk.
And the people of the earth had a great sacrifice.
The troglodyte.
Right. To the gods.
Yeah.
The sun god.
The sun god.
Yeah, it was.
The sun god.
They had a great.
Quetzalcoatl.
Yeah, they had a great sacrifice to the sun god last week. That's why we have sun.
Quetzalcoatl. Quetzalcoatl, take my heart. I give you.
Well, and look, most of those ceremonies we have, if we go to church, this one, drink the blood of Christ.
No, thank you.
This is
eat the body of Christ.
Exactly. And you know what they've done over time, right? Over time they've said, this is the lamb.
Well, listen.
God.
Why can't I chew on his toenails or something? It might hurt my teeth, but it's not like cannibalism, is it? It's not. I'm not eating somebody's, body. I got toenails. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I've sat down in church many a times, and
I could chew on his hair follicles.
And I've listened to that ceremony, right? And as I was saying to you earlier on, you said, "Oh no, there was no cannibalism anywhere." And I says, "Bring me his head, bring me his heart." And you sit down in church and you listening to a ceremony.
Well, whenever I've asked, when I was younger, and I was horrified by this, and I'd asked, I would be told the line that it's a metaphor, so it doesn't really matter.
You're.
But when it came to the naming of the Caribbean from cannibalism, right? Which the Arawaks, the Taino, and who was the other ones?
Yeah, all right, Karen.
The Arawaks, the Taino, and the people who resisted the Europeans keep their land originally, long time before Africans set foot in the place.
Yeah.
The original inhabitants there, they were called cannibals.
Okay.
They were labelled for no reason whatsoever.
Yes, there was a reason.
Why? Because they didn't want the press gang sailors to run off and join them, and if they were scared, they wouldn't do that.
That was one of the stories. Ah, yes, that was one of the stories. I did hear that. But I would say to you, Rwanda. And migrants coming across the boat. It was propaganda. It was for the people, domestic.
What's the most awful thing you could call somebody? You see, the thing is, it's very hard for, like a press gang soldier that feels quite resentful to his officers.
I heard that story.
Anyway, and now he's on this new bit of land, and he thinks, I could do a runner here, and they couldn't catch me. I could go into the rainforest, take my chance, and find some papayas to eat. But, right, if he was terrified of the cannibals that were in there, these wild creatures and wild animals and wilder people, then why take your chance?
Yes.
And actually, you'd fight like hell, because you just think, I don't want these native Arawaks and Taino and the two, you know, to kill me and eat me. Because really, many of them were coming from Christian backgrounds. The idea of being eaten, they couldn't go to heaven.
Right. And do you know why the British sailors was revered? Do you know the story behind that? It was from a guy named, there was a pirate named Captain Morgan, right? Who eventually they made him first Governor General of Jamaica. But here's the story.
I think they're called mercenaries now.
Pirates.
Pirates, yeah, pirates, mercenaries. Yeah.
Depends which side you're on.
Oh yes, I have pirates.
Depends which side you're on.
Pirates is meant to be a neutral name. And in fact, it's meant to be a romantic thing, isn't it?
It can be.
Okay.
Pirates of the Caribbean. Anyway, so
Right.
how is it that the British sailors and back in them times were revered? Because when the British fleet went down to the Caribbean, there was a pirate there named Captain Morgan, and when the sailors, he was
Who made exceedingly good rum.
yeah. So when the sailors were gonna go, they were so frightened about the reputation, probably in Blackbeard as well, you know, and Long John Silver, you know. Anyway, I got a few jokes. But anyway, yeah. So they were so frightened of the pirates. I think the main one was Captain Morgan. They scooted back home. And do you know what happened when they got back home to London? Do you know what the Admiralty did from them sailors running away? There's this thing called yardarm. And what's the only reason why you would remember yardarm? They hanged them from the yardarm. Remember, they had a thing about sticking heads up on poles.
Wow.
On the River Thames, and they would hang it. They hanged all of them to teach the soldiers, the sailors, this lesson: you fight until death. Do you remember in World War I, if you didn't go over the trench, what happened?
Wouldn't you be shot as
Exactly.
a traitor?
Did you see Blackadder?
Blackadder. Oh yeah, Blackadder.
Yeah. Put two pencils up your nose and a panty on your head and go wobble wobble wobble. And in that same scene behind him, the sergeant was saying yes, and they stuck a thing on her and they said wobble wobble, and we shot them, and Blackadder said yes, and as I was telling you, don't do that. Because the doors higher. Come on, right? Yeah, so they shot you. So it's not really bravery, it's that if you come back they'll shoot you.
Well, I remember reading some time ago about of a hero in hero in this case, an Afro-Brazilian, right, who would have been like a commander. It's called Zumbi de Palmares, Zumbi of Palmares, one of the very successful Quilombos that resisted for nearly 20 years and was finally destroyed by the Portuguese army.
You see,
and was burnt to the ground.
now you say, what's his name?
Zumbi.
Sounds a lot like Zumba, which is also a dance.
A dance, yes.
But I'm sure if you look closer into it, it's probably a fighting style in there somewhere, like Copera.
Yeah, but what I mean is, also you had rebellions in Guyana at Demerara. A successful that was put down.
Demerara is a sugar, it's a rum. Well,
but it
rum,
was a town
sugar cane.
in the interior.
Yeah.
It was a kind of cowboy-like town in the interior.
Yeah.
And it was part of a successful slave revolt, which lasted for quite a long time, when African slaves fought together with Native Americans.
Yeah, and we
Well, they're similar to the Maroons.
that's the name that you were
I know,
fighting
Maroons.
for to come up. the original who fought the British and the one.
No, I meant to say zombie Palmaris because Maroons would be quite common. I mean, so I wanted to bring that further in at the end and add it together. But I didn't want to bring it at the beginning because I didn't want that cliche. I wanted to show that there were slave revolts in other parts of South America and the Caribbean that are not as well known about.
Yeah, and still not well known about because you have to go and
Yes,
do a lot of research and studying and reading reports.
research and studying and specialised and that.
And guess what?
And
People
most people have so much to do in their everyday life. It's just too much for them, isn't it?
It is, and this is the problem. That's why I go back to that point, and I'll end towards the conclusion. It's not about Claire Starmer. Well, anyway, this is one angle. It's not about Claire Starmer. It's not about the Conservative. It's about the British people, right? If you could get fooled again, you've been fooled by Claire Starmer. Am I calling his name out right? Claire.
Keir,
Keir.
like Keir Hardy.
Yeah.
Although they're poles apart.
Yeah. The British people have been fooled again. They got fooled by Boris Johnson. They were laughing and joking at the clown, and then eventually they realised, oh shit, he's a bloody clown, right?
Weren't they fooled by what's his name of Waterloo? Wellington. Weren't they fooled by Benjamin Disraeli? Weren't they fooled by Winston Churchill? Weren't they fooled by throughout history? Haven't they been fooled by their leaders throughout history?
And it's going to be interesting. What do you see? What do you see? What do you see ahead? Not necessarily after election, but here's part of what I see. Right, the government gave the people on benefits £1,000 for the last 2 years. It's now been taken away, right?
Yeah.
It's about, we're in the second month now of people.
Now they're talking about cutting the benefits yet again, like in austerity. They're going back to the Duncan Smith time.
Duncan, put you in a thing in the Duncan.
Dunking, the chocolate biscuit.
So what do you see? Because you said to me that you sense there's a form of anger on the streets.
In a sullen form, yes.
From where I am, I can see a lot of people. Yes, they're angry, right? They don't know why they're angry. They're
confused. I think in the next 6 months there'll be lots of distractions and lots of enemy creation, and there'll be a ramping up of the the usual targets, victim blaming.
You see, one of the biggest distractions people have in their life is after having a hard day or an interaction, a normal interaction in the outside world, they go home and they sit in front of a square box.
A square box, yeah.
And everything that comes out of that square box.
That's not the square box they have in the palm of their hand.
Oh, now they can carry the square box around with them.
No.
Right? So in this square box, mainly the one you sit down in front of when
It's
you
the
come home.
edited version of reality.
It's not even reality. Yeah, you're right. It is the edited version, but it is glamorized. Yes,
Glamorized. Oh,
yes,
glamorized.
yes, Mr. Darcy. Yes, yes. What's super charming such and such? Oh, when Harry met Sally, when Arnold Schwarzenegger. And it seems that they're communicating to you in a gentlemanly fashion, right? After you've come in from having an argument with a traffic warden, right? Who's put a ticket on your car and your car is being towed away, right? Or or they're digging up the road,
Yeah.
right? Or the school, there's problems at school.
Oh, what about all of these things, one after the other?
Well, that would knock some people out.
Yeah, well, that's what's happening to people, because there's not just one problem, there's another one and another one. I went to pay my electricity bill, and then I was told it's not accepted. And why? Well, I phoned up and found out that it now has to be swiped, but I haven't got the swipe button. That's going to be sent to me, right? Then on the text message there was a collection of numbers, as well as the letters as well as numbers. They wouldn't accept that in that machine. So this is really sickening. It's a little thing, but it's causing magnificent stress. Then there comes the stress of the bus and the train and this and so on and so on and so
Who's
on.
on strike today, or who was on strike yesterday?
The train drivers,
Right.
ASLEF.
Now, why are they on strike?
Because they always asking for more money.
Right.
They're not satisfied. They're not satisfied. I think the trouble is they want to eat twice a day, and they don't want to be responsible for the train crash.
Because they need more money. And why
Yeah.
do they need more money? Because their cost of,
Because they're living below inflation.
right, and every time somebody goes on strike,
And they don't have a private helicopter. So which is an oversight by Rishi. Should have given them one each.
and anytime any one group of people go on strike, they get demonized,
Demonised, yes, right, mate,
right?
demonised.
And they don't even get any coverage.
And when our Tommy has a Cockney accent, that's absolutely awful. That means that's great. I mean, that's lovely. That's man of the people. But when Mick Lynch has a Cockney accent, even though he's got a couple of degrees from Oxford Brookes University on legal, political, social studies, that Cockney accent is now it's something it's uneducated. You don't know nothing. So it's a funny manipulation, isn't it?
It is.
So you see, what is the Cockney accent good? Is it bad? Well, when it's done by our boys, that's good. When it's done by working
Someone else.
class people who are going on strike because they can't live
ends
properly,
meet, yeah.
make ends meet, then it's terrible. So here's we're going to use the word race here, but we'll just use the manipulation of discrimination, class discrimination. So, and class discrimination is the one that's almost forgotten. In fact, it's the largest one,
Yeah.
right? It's the first one before race, gender and sexuality. Class discrimination.
So on the final point, I'll say I'm looking forward to going back to medieval times. So because you said about the class thing, so that's
Does-
the 1%. So
Dost thou request a return to thine land,
oh yeah,
where knowledge flowed like gentle wine?
do you remember the landlords, or the, what do you call them, knights of the, would come to collect the king's money? You'll have to to live on that land.
Oh, like the Sheriff of Nottingham.
Yes, you have to pay.
He was a nice guy, Sheriff of Nottingham.
See, you had council tax to pay then, and you didn't even know it. Listen, now I'm going to say goodbye.
Yeah, Robin, you've got to pay your council tax, or we take our souls out and run you through.
Do you know who we need in these times?
My
We need a-
liege, who dost thou
We need
embody?
We need the Robin Hood.
Robin Hood.
No chance of that. This is Finsbury Park.
Robin Hood.
It was a forest.
We do have, but I think we've got a Robin Bastard.
Too many of them.
Too many of them.
Too many of them. All right, let me
I
conclude.
shall cross the floor. Right. I shall pretend that I'm very angry and rejected, and I shall cross the 4
Now
because of my great morals.
You see now, that's a pretend Robin
A great
Hood.
moral.
That's a pretend.
Moral.
That's a pretend Robin Hood,
Let's pretend.
right? Who robs the poor?
Robs the war. and maybe
And cons the rich.
and yes, and sometimes finds his sometimes Robert has found his hand placed on the thigh of destiny.
Yeah, and how much did he have to pay for that in the middle of the night? £3,000. I've been held up by bad men.
Bad men.
Yeah. Oh, listen. let me conclude. So it's
Bad
good
men.
night from me, and it's good.
And it's good night from him and me.